This is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Casual Sunglasses Case, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description or go to your favorite search engine and simply type in Moogly blog Casual Sunglasses Case, and it should come right up. To make this pattern, I'll be using a USK 6.5mm crochet hook. This one is a Twist and Lock by Susan Bates. I'm also using about 50 yards of Bernat Maker, which is a bulky weight yarn that you can see here. It is a cotton nylon blend. You'll also need one 1 5/8 inch button or the button of your choice. Stitch markers, scissors, and your standard crochet supplies are also needed. Let's take a closer look at the Casual Sunglasses Case. The Casual Sunglasses Case, seen here in the sky blue colorway, is the third part in this series, starting with the Casual Crochet Crossbody bag and the Casual Crochet pouch, perfect for all your ID cards, debit cards, credit cards, whatever you need to carry on a daily basis. Now we've got the sunglasses pouch, which is the perfect size for all your oversized sunglasses as well as your reading glasses. You can see here it's got the same type of long strap to attach to your bag as the ID pouch, which of course means it also fits really well as a wristlet. And of course you can take it off and switch it to other bags as needed. While the ID pouch does have the strap's the same length, it will work with the IDs in there. You do unfortunately have to take the glasses out before you move this to another bag, simply a function of the size of it. So here it is. We've got this beautiful texture all the way around, just like the rest of the set, and the same type of closure. You can see here is our big button in front. We've got a loop that comes through a hole and is made as we're crocheting here around the top. And then, of course, there is that great wrist length strap, perfect for wearing alone or adding to your favorite bag. Now, I don't have a pair of sunglasses down here in my crochet room, but I do have a pair of reading glasses. So you can see there's lots of extra space, so it will definitely fit your larger oversized sunglasses as well as your reading glasses. And I know I am definitely one of those people who needs to take those with me now when I head out and about. So you can just slip your glasses right in there, find that loop, send it through the hole, around the button, and they are nice and secure everywhere you go. So let's go ahead and make our own Casual Sunglasses Case. Now let's get started making our own Casual Sunglasses Case. You can see here I already have a slip knot on my hook, and we're going to start with one row and then switch to rounds, which is a really common way that I like to use to make bags and pouches. So we're going to start this one with a chain of 10. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then we're going to skip the chain closest to the hook and work a herringbone half double crochet in each remaining chain across. So that one we skip is going to act as our turning chain. Now I like to work into the underneath hump of each chain rather than under either of the top two loops, but you can work into whichever portion you prefer. I do think working into the underneath hump gives a nicer finished edge. But let's go ahead and begin. To make a herringbone half double crochet, I start by yarning over. Then I'm going to go into that indicated stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then I'm going to continue by pulling that loop I just pulled up through the chain through the yarn over. So I don't yarn over again, I just continue to pull that one right on through. That leaves two loops left on my hook, so I yarn over and pull through both of those. Now, here's where I'm going to recommend you start using those stitch markers right away. Let me get that loop up on my finger there. It doesn't want to stay put. There we go. I'm going to take one stitch marker and I'm going to put it right in the top of that stitch I just made. So that marks the top of my first stitch. Now, because we're going to be switching to rows after this round, I'm also going to go ahead and put a stitch marker right in the bottom of that same stitch. There we go. So right in between those two stitch markers, you can see that loop right there. That's that turning chain that we're skipping over. This will help me out as we move on to round 2. So now we just continue to make herringbone half double crochets in each remaining chain across. So let's do a few more of those together. We start by yarning over, go right into the next stitch there, yarn over and pull up our loop, pull that same loop through that yarn over loop, leaves 2 loops left on the hook, we yarn over and pull through 2. Then we just continue across, yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, pull that loop through our yarn over loop, yarn over and pull through 2. That's how to make the herringbone half double crochet, and we do that in each one of our chains. Alrighty, and now I've worked one of those herringbone half double crochets in each chain across till I ended up right back next to our slip knot. So I'm going to take just another moment here, and I'm going to put in a couple more stitch markers. Now, the one on top probably isn't as necessary, but for the sake of completeness, I'll go ahead and put one there. And I'm also, oops, there's a few extras, going to put one at the bottom of that last stitch, right next to the slip knot. Again, this is just going to make round 2 a little bit easier here. There we go. So with your stitch markers in place, that is row 1. Now in row 1, we had 9 stitches total. So remember, we chained 10 and skipped that one for the turning chain. In round 20, we're going to go all the way around that row for a total of 20 stitches. So we start with a chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, however you like to do it. And the first step is simple. We're just going to herringbone half double crochet in each stitch across again. So we yarn over, go right into that first stitch, yarn over and pull up our loop, pull that loop on through, and yarn over and pull through 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and move that first stitch marker there, right up to our new first stitch of the round. There we go. And for now, I simply herringbone half double crochet in each stitch across. So now I have herringbone half double crocheted in each stitch across. You can see I took the stitch marker there out of that last stitch. And what we're going to do now that we've stitched across is we want to put one right in that turning chain. So we yarn over and go right under the 2 loops there along the side of that turning chain, yarn over and pull up our loop, pull that loop through, and finish our stitch. Then we're going to come over here and work a herringbone half double crochet in the bottom of each one of those stitches of row 1. So that's row 1 right here. We're working row 2 around it. So now, after you work that one in the turning chain, you come over here to this marked stitch. Just helps guide you on your path a little bit. Get our herringbone half double crochet squeezed in there, and then we can take that stitch marker on out of the way. There we go. And then we just continue working into the bottom of those stitches. You can see here is where working into that underneath hump, if you will, really pays off, because now I've got 2 loops to work under here. It just makes it a whole lot easier to work into the bottom of this stitch, or these stitches, I should say, just as if we're the top of the same stitches. So I'm just going to continue working my herringbone half double crochet across here until I get to this next stitch marker. So now you can see I've worked my way across here to this last marked stitch. You can see with the slip knot in our tail here, that is the bottom of that last stitch we made there in row 1. So I'm going to go ahead and take that stitch marker out of the way. Now I need to put one more stitch right here in the side of that last stitch we made in row 1. So we're just going to sort of split it, treat it as if it was a turning chain. We've got a couple loops there at the end we can grab and put our final herringbone half double crochet in there. Now this one worked into the side there is going to be the last one of the round. So we want to put another stitch marker right in there, because now we're going to be working in joined rounds, where we join with a slip stitch to that first stitch right there with the stitch marker. And having that first and last stitch marked from here on out will keep us from accidentally working into our slip stitches and accidentally increasing our pouch. You can see even here after just row 2, it is already starting to curl up into that pouch shape. So from here, we repeat the same round around and around for 20 rounds to create the height of our bag. We simply chain 1 and herringbone half double crochet in each stitch around. So we start right with that first marked stitch. Oops. Let me get my stitch made there. We make our first herringbone half double crochet. We move that stitch marker right on up to the top of that stitch, and then we simply herringbone half double crochet in each stitch around and join with a slip stitch when we get to the end. Just keep moving up those stitch markers in the first and last stitch of each round. You'll want about 20 rounds total to get up to the height for your glasses. If you are making these for an unusually, wide or long pair of glasses, or maybe for something else altogether, then you can certainly add, or for that matter, subtract however many rows you'd like to create your own custom pouch size. But you should have 20 stitches all the way around here in all of your rows, or rounds, I should say, from round 2 all the way through round 20. So 20 rounds of 20 stitches. And I'll see you after I've got a couple more of those made. So here you can see I've done just a few rounds of our sunglasses case, and I would need to add about 20 rounds to get this full height. Right up there is where we're at, about 20 rounds. Then we switch to the top of the case. For the sake of time today, I'm going to go ahead and pretend that I have worked all the way up to here, and now we'll make the top of our case. Now, this first round at the top of our case is where we do a couple of different things. We create the hole that the loop will come through, and we create that loop itself using a special stitch called a picot single crochet. So let's go ahead and make this round together. We start by chaining 1, and then we're going to work a back loop only single crochet in each of the first 5 stitches. So let's get this stitch marker out of the way here for a moment. And now we want to look at the top of each of these stitches. You'll see the top of your standard crochet stitch has 2 loops that sort of make a V if you look at them this way. There's one loop that's always closer to you and one loop that's always furthest away. It's just relative to the crocheter. If I were to turn this around, now a different loop would be closer to me than the other one. So to work under the back loop only, we want to go under just the loop that's furthest away from us as we crochet. So as I go right into that first stitch, I'll put my hook right under just that back loop only and make my standard single crochet. So the stitch itself hasn't changed, just where we work it. So I'm going to go ahead and put my stitch marker right in the top of that first one. So there's our first one. And now we need 4 more. Again, we just want to make sure to split the top of that stitch so that we go under just that back loop. Now, I haven't worked a full 20 rows here, or rounds, I should say. And when you're working rounds of crochet, sometimes you get a little bit of a lean. So on our little pouch, it might not line up quite as well. This can also be affected by your gauge. So if you find that you have gotten a different gauge than me, or just your seam isn't adding up right, you may need to adjust some of the stitch counts in this round to get things to line up properly. What we're doing here, again, is creating that hole and that loop. So if you need to go back and sort of scooch everything, 1 stitch to the right or 1 stitch to the left, that is fine. Do not be afraid to do that. Again, this is just sort of our stubby little demonstration one, so it's not exactly the same. Let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, so I'm going to do 1 more. And that makes 5 back loop only single crochets. Then I chain 3. This is creating the hole that the loop will go through. 1, 2, 3. I'll skip 3 stitches. You can already see it's a little twisted on our little sample here, but we're going to pretend it's the full-sized one. So we chain 3 and skip 3. 1, 2, 3. We skip over those completely and go to the next one. Back loop only, single crochet. Now let's check our instructions here. After we skip those 3, we back loop only, single crochet in the next 8. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, get that through there, 7, and 8. There we go. Now, after that, we back loop only, picot single crochet in the next stitch. Now, a picot single crochet is sort of like a single crochet with a picot built in. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm going to show it here in a moment. But I want to point out that if you see this stitch in any pattern, be sure to look to your special stitches section, because there's lots of different numbers of chains that it can be made with. Now let's get to the version for this one. We start by going, again, it's back loop only. So we're going to go right under that back loop, yarn over and pull up our loop. Started a single crochet, but now I'm going to chain 10. So I'm just going to yarn over, and I'm just going to use that first loop on our hook here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, so you can see I've made that long chain there. That's going to be the loop that we use to go around our button. So after that, we yarn over and pull through those last 2 stitches. Now what we want to do is make sure that loop faces the inside of our pouch and go right back to that next stitch for a back loop only single crochet. You can see now that loop is facing the inside of our pouch, so we can go through that hole, and from the outside, There's a little bit of a hole there, but it's not too bad. We're just going to continue to back loop only, single crochet around in each remaining stitch. Now we've already come to our stitch marker there, so I'm going to go ahead and move my stitch marker up. Now, as I mentioned, because I'm doing a small sample piece, my my seam is not in the same space, not quite in the same spot as it were if I had made 20 rounds. So after I make my slip stitch there and get my hook somewhere where it won't roll away, we can stop and take another look at our pouch, and we can see how it is offset on this size. By adding more rows, we can see really closely here, there's that seam. It does offset it just enough so that it lines up. We've got that hole centered and that loop centered. But again, if you're changing the number of rows, if your gauge is different, if the tightness of your slip stitches are different, it may have changed the location of that seam. So this is where you stop and take a look. Is it lined up? Nope. I need to scooch these over a couple more, which will naturally scooch that over a couple more, and you can sort of adjust those as needed. But they should be lined up right in the center of your pouch so that that loop that's now on the inside of your pouch can go right through that chain 3 hole. Now, when you've got round 1 of the top of your case figured out, then it's time for round 2, which is where we make that long wrist or attachment strap. For this one, I'm going to chain 30. And I'm not going to be working back into any of these chains, so you can go ahead and make them a little tighter than you otherwise would if you knew you were going to be stitching back into them. And of course, you can also adjust the length of this strap, making it longer or shorter for whatever reasons, needs you want to have it longer or shorter. 30 is just what I found worked really well for me, both as a wrist strap and to attach the pouches to the bag. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Got just a few more here to make on mine. Not going to worry too much about getting it perfect here on our little sample. We'll say that's 30 for the sake of time here. And you can see that's just right after the slip stitch I made at the end of the previous round here. I haven't done anything else here in round 2 of the top just yet. All I've done is chain 30. So then what we want to do, we want to try and keep that from twisting. When we pick up our projects, they can spin around. So we want to do our best to make sure that that bit of chain is nice and flat. There we go. You can see I just look at it and make sure those V's are sort of all lined up. Having a little table or something to rest on here can be really helpful. And then I can come right back down to this first marked stitch, and I'm just going to go ahead and put a single crochet in it. Just like that. Then I can go ahead and move that stitch marker right up to the top of that new stitch. And for now, I'm just going to ignore that chain of 30. And then with my loop back on my hook there, I can just single crochet in each stitch around. Now, when you get to that chain 3 space, you get to make a decision. I honestly have tried it both ways, and I can't honestly decide which way I prefer for this project. If you'd like, you can work 3 single crochets, working one into each one of those chains. You just go right into each chain for a single crochet, just as if it were any other stitch. Takes a little bit more time, but it has a really nice look to it. You can see right there. On the other hand, if you prefer, you can work those 3 single crochets right into the chain space. Just put your hook right in that space there and go right around the chain 3. As I say, I've tried it both ways, and this way is certainly faster and easier, but I can't really decide which look I like best. So you can try both and decide for yourself. After that, we just continue to single crochet in each stitch around. So I'll see you here as we get to the end of round 2 of the top. Alrighty, so as you can see here, I've single crocheted in that last stitch and moved my stitch marker up to the top of that stitch. I haven't slip stitched though, and I wanted to do that with you here because we want to make sure to pull that chain 30 loop to the outside of our bag. We don't want it tucked in here when we go to make our slip stitch. That'll, put it on the inside of the bag, which I guess would be a different look. And honestly, if you prefer it, you could. But the way I did it was I pulled that chain 30 loop to the outside, just kind of get it out of the way there, and then make that slip stitch right in that first marked stitch. There we go. So now you can see the loop is trapped to the outside of the bag and ready to use. And now we just have one more round. Our final round is simply slip stitching around. I find it gives a really nice firm edge. So I'm going to go ahead and just set that whole stitch marker aside. We don't need it anymore. And then continue to make a slip stitch in each stitch around. Now, I don't want to tighten up the top of my bag too much, so I'm just going to take my time and make sure that I pull up each loop before I pull it on through for my slip stitch. And then, of course, I will get all the way around, break my yarn, and sew in my ends. So let's come back to our finished casual sunglasses case. You can see here, there is that row of slip stitch all the way around, and we simply join at the end. And there is our strap sticking out. So after all the crocheting is done, we've got our picot single crochet loop there on the inside. Our very last step is to sew on one of these buttons. Now I used a 1 5/8 inch button. So if you change the size of your button, you may need to change the size of your picot single crochet. This one, that number of chains was designed to go around this size of button. So if you use a smaller or a larger button, you may need to alter the number of chains in your picot single crochet. So it can really helpful if you need to sew the button on early before you make those last couple rounds, you can absolutely do that. We just sew it right underneath that chain 3 space right there. Just like so. And I, of course, use just a little bit of matching thread. If you cannot get your yarn needle through the holes of your button, you can always use the dental floss or a thread trick, which I have another video tutorial for here on this channel. And that's how to crochet the Casual Sunglasses Case. Perfect for all your sunglasses and reading glasses. And don't forget about the matching patterns, the Casual Crochet Crossbody Bag and Pouch, both of which have their own tutorials on this channel as well. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.